All right, everybody, this is super exciting because today is part 2 of addiction and codependency in relationships. And those of you that saw part 1, I have actually had a lot of people ask me, like, where's part 2? Like, my neighbor came down. The truth of it is we recorded it and we were planning to have it out earlier, but we weren't happy with the results, so we recorded it again. Okay, so we have Kim back here with us. She's our relationship specialist. And Kim is really the one that sort of comes into play when we have couples come in recovery. So like one of the spouses or one of the partners is getting clean and sober, and then you have like the other partner. Mm-hmm. And Kim oftentimes sees the partner of the person getting in recovery.
Right.
Okay. And so that means what about you? It
means I also want to throw in there too, I see a lot of young girls in addiction. And so the same stuff applies to them because what they do is they just repeat this negative relationship cycle over and over and over. Not that guys don't do it too, but girls seem to do it more. So, so basically what this means is that teaching them skills, verbal ninja skills on how to handle things that would probably turn into a fight, so that they don't turn into a fight.
And so when we recorded this before, we recorded it like the counselor way. Mm-hmm. And so there are 5 counselor steps. We're going to put them right up here on the screen for you so you can see the technical terms for this.
Right.
But I think it's easier to understand if we just break it down into real talk.
I think so too. So let's go negative, like what typically happens, and then let's turn that into what we want to happen. So
tell us what happens when it doesn't go so well.
When it doesn't go well.
When it doesn't go well.
Let's say my husband comes home. I like to use. Let's say my husband comes home, and let's say he comes home late, and for whatever reason, I'm mad. So he comes home. And
you're mad because he's been sketch balls for a long time, whatever reason.
Right.
For a bunch of reasons.
So let's say he comes home late, and let's say he's in early recovery, and I'm like, where has he been? Like, what's going on? Like,
sketchy. I know he stopped at the gas station and got some beers.
Something's going on.
Yeah.
And so he comes in late, and so then I'm like, hey, where are you? Where have you been? I called you or whatever. And he's like, oh, I got stuck in traffic, or my phone died, or he gives me some reason. So at this point, I'm already triggered. At this point, I'm already mad. I'm looking for a fight. And so maybe I sniff him. Maybe I withdraw. Maybe I don't talk to him. Mm-hmm. Maybe I give him the silent treatment. Well, dinner's in the fridge if you want it. Or the kids and I waited up for you, but they're in bed.
Passive aggressive.
Yes.
Ooh.
So then at this point, he has hit my button because he's late and I don't trust him. So now my fear is like going crazy. So at this point, I'm being mean and angry to him, which hits his button. So now he's either going to lash out at me and be like, well, what do you want from me? I blah, 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 blah. I'll take a drug test. I was late. You want to put a tracker on my phone? Whatever. So
you never trust me.
Yep.
I might as well still be using
right.
because you're just going to be thinking I'm doing something forever.
Or he'll do the complete opposite of that and just not talk to me. So either way, I've got my button is hit, his button is hit.
Either way, that's the thought process that's going to go on their head.
Yes,
the question is whether or not they say it out loud.
That's very true.
Some of them will just think that and be like,
Yep.
They think it in their head, whatever. I'll get you, I'll show you.
Yep.
And then you might be followed up by what I call like a I'll get drunk at you episode. Like, I'm so mad at you, watch this, I will go use, now you should be wearing something. Right.
So you can see how we could go on and on and on about how this cycle goes, but something happens, I lash out, which makes them lash out, which makes me lash out, which makes them lash out, and we just keep going. Nothing gets solved here. There's no problem solving, nothing happens here but more chaos. So when you talk about what this video is about is how to avoid that. So the first thing to do is to be able just to take a really big step back and say, okay, what is my problem? How do I need to address my problem? If I don't trust him, if I feel like I'm, being taken advantage of, whatever it is.
Maybe I am being overly hypersensitive because there's some real reasons for that.
Right.
But probably I'm bringing that lens into it. Whereas if this had just happened without the past, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal.
I am bringing that lens in. Absolutely.
So in recovery, we talk about, we use some terms, like keeping your side of the street clean. So that's figuring out, okay, where is my mess? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? And another way to put it is another term that sometimes in recovery they'll say is like, take your own inventory, not someone else's. So it's a self look at what am I bringing to it? Like, what emotional lens am I coming from? What emotional tone am I approaching the conversation with?
And that takes a lot of self-control. not to just take your feelings and go forward with them.
So that whole hour you were sitting there waiting, that's a good time to be putting your plan on. But most people in that whole hour, they're thinking, oh, when he gets home, it's
wait.
on. And then you're like, you don't even have to say anything as a spouse. You walk through the door, you can feel that energy. Like, God. You probably knew it was coming the whole drive home, probably. Right. Okay.
So with all of that, you just take a step back, figure out what you're bringing to the table. And humor is a really good thing. Like if they walk in the door and you say, look, I know I'm a little bit crazy right now. This is all new to me, but in my mind, you were at the gas station pounding beer in the parking lot. I'm sure that's not what was happening, but just help me feel better. Like, where were you?
I love that approach. Because that really is like, it's saying, okay, here's what I'm thinking. But you're doing it in such a way that it's not an attack. It's not saying that's what happened.
Right.
Brene Brown.
I was just gonna say
that's Kim's favorite. I mean, Kim's favorite. That's Kim's favorite. Brene Brown stalker right here.
So her language is the story I'm telling myself. The story I'm telling myself is that you were drinking and now you're coming home, and that's the lens I'm operating from. So the story I'm telling myself.
And that really is coming at someone by saying, I could be wrong, and I'm hoping you're going to set me straight, which is sort of like an openness to, hey, help me change that story.
Yeah, give me some confidence in you. And if you start an interaction like that, then you're pretty much on the path to good. Because another thing to bring in, John Gottman, and he's a really good relationship person too, but he talks about the fact that if you start any conversation harshly, it's going to end bad. It doesn't matter who it is. So if you're meeting your spouse with this harsh tone, you're signing up for a fight. Versus being able to take 10 steps back and say, hey, look, I know I'm kind of crazy. I know I'm insecure. The story I'm telling myself is I'm already soft. I'm already approachable. And you're vulnerable. You know what I like about that is like the vulnerability of like, I'm worried. You're basically saying, I'm scared this is what happened. And that's such a different approach to it than saying, I know what you've been doing. Right. You know, like, because if anybody comes to you and says, hey, I'm scared, by default, especially if you're connected to them, by default you want to comfort them. So if you're coming at your loved one saying, I'm scared, or this is what I'm telling myself, they almost always want to come in and make you feel better versus where have you been. Then they automatically want to fight.
And the same thing applies to the person in recovery. Like you can start that conversation by saying, look, I know when I was drinking and using, I was like always 2 hours late. So I can totally see why you would think that, but here's what happened. So you're going to come in and own while the other person, you know, I call it, if you're going to have a conversation and you know the other person's going to think something defensively or against what you're saying, you say it first.
Yeah.
I don't know where that is in the counselor books, but I always say, you say it first because it's like takes the wind out of the sails. So if you say, I know in the past I always did this and it totally looks like this, it's like it neutralizes
it validates. It validates
there
everything.
There you go. Yep.
Because it's validating, hey, I know I've done all these things that were terrible and really were not nice to you. I recognize that, but this isn't that.
So if the spouse can come in and say, I know I'm probably still crazy here. I'm going to talk to Kim about it later this week, but here's what I'm telling myself. Here's my story.
Right.
And if the person in recovery can come in and say something like, I totally get why you're thinking that. Like, you're valid in your thinking, but here's what really happened.
I got stuck late, or I got stuck in traffic, or my phone really did die. Look.
Or even extra vulnerability. I sat in the gas station parking lot. I thought about it for 30 minutes, but I didn't go in there. Like, maybe even like, I don't know.
If that's the truth.
If that's the truth, just come at it. Like, the key is taking the walls down and not trying to attack. Because if you know how I was thinking about that game Weston plays. It's like some game on the phone where you like throw arrows and you try to hit the person on the other side and kill them. It's like that. It's
That's
like,
exactly what it is.
If you come in throwing an arrow, you're going to get something back.
Right.
You're either going to get a shield or you're going to get an arrow back.
Yep. So with this approach, it creates connection, and with connection, it promotes those good chemicals in your brain, which are actually going to be a barrier to stay in recovery. Right.
And this doesn't happen immediately.
True.
I'm not saying like my clients come here and say this like week 1 or 2, but usually by month 2 or 3, my clients are coming and telling me like, you know, me and my wife, me and my husband, we're doing better than we've ever done before. Like, this has changed our marriage. If you will apply the recovery skills, if you've watched any of my other videos, you should hopefully know that recovery is about way more than staying sober. This is about recovery. I always say is about managing your mental health. That's what recovery is. And so if you can do that, your relationship will improve.
Right.
Okay, so if you get what we're talking about right here, like you understand the dialogue, then what I want you to do is I want you to go down to the comments and I want you to put the boxing glove emoji in there. And that is going to be your signifying, like, you're letting go of the boxing gloves. You don't need them anymore. It's like a white chip or something. It's like I surrender.
I like that.
I want you to surrender those boxing gloves and put them in the comments below.
I like that.
If you don't, I'm going to know you still holding your boxing gloves. Okay, so if this is your first video with us, I'm Amber Hollingsworth, Master Addiction Counselor and founder of Hope for Families Recovery Center, where basically what we do every day is put families back together that have been destroyed by the disease of addiction. Bulldozed, ran over, demolished. We put those pieces back together. And that's what this YouTube channel is all about, giving you the tools, strategies, resources, supports, and information you need to be able to put your own family back together. So if you're in that situation, make sure you subscribe to this channel and we'll make sure you have what you need to beat addiction for good.